Okay, so in fact, we have very limited time, but only a few questions to either Lisa or John, please.
Yes.
Bruce.
I'd like to ask a question of John.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas about verification measures? What might be put in place to verify that a certain practice actually works? Because we know that certain practices carried out in one region don't necessarily work in another region or don't have the same effect in another region. And presumably there have to be some measurements. Do you have any idea at the present time of what might actually be put in place to do this?
Well, I suppose in general, yeah, the challenge or one of the challenges is the European framework or the regulation as drafted by the Commission and with various other people tying into it is quite generic on purpose. And we're pushing more for the concept of movement variation. So you can't really have one size fits all across Europe. And even within Ireland, it's hard to necessarily have a one size fits all. So it'll have to be, for example, for things will have to be, we're kind of looking at existing capabilities. Like, for example, under acres, like already there's something like 50,000, there's 130,000 farmers in Ireland, 50,000 or even more are subscribed to the acre scheme. And within that and in other schemes, there are some very good scorecards for scoring nature. And if we're looking into potentially rewarding people for ecosystem services, such as elements of biodiversity, we're looking into the potential of developing scorecards, but they may vary in different regions. And it may even come to a position where you could even have a position where a farmer could self-report on something, but it would need all. So that has to be designed. But it looks like Ireland is ahead of most countries on a lot of things, including on the biodiversity side, for example, and in other measurements. If you look at, for example, in the dairy side and beef and others, or be it quality assurance schemes, captures such a similar number of farmers. And so there's fantastic data in there. So there's potential there under the right conditions to use that if agreement can be achieved or something like it. And we're hoping to develop things on a pilot scale initially, so rather than launching something immediately, explore on a pilot basis. So a bit like, you might have heard of AgNav, which has been developing a digital platform to support the likes of the signpost farm. I think we've got 200 signpost farms. Those kind of resources bring together very good data. And I suppose, again, it use the usual mix of things to try and prove it. But I think in Ireland we've been advantage that we could try and drive home with in this. We're quite joined up. So I think that would be the biggest challenge of getting the right data sharing under the right conditions to kind of, again, ground truth results. So, it's a challenge, but it will vary, so you could be in an area, pretend you're in a particular habitat, particular region, say on the Shannon, and there's important migrating bats or freshwater pearl mussels or something. There may be potential to give different incentives in those regions, certain catchments, whereas a different region might have different interests. So, it could be an element of customizing. So sorry, I didn't end this. Thanks. Yeah.
Any questions?
Why you should be at the plan. Once because you restrain yourself, because you have mental speak. On the other thing is you see the global warming coming.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the challenges is the whole idea of leakage, or carbon leakage. And, it's hard, it's easy to fix certain things, but it's very hard. Let's say, for example, we've one of the most efficient systems for producing milk in Ireland. Dairy is phenomenal. Now, if we disincentivize farmers, if we encourage them to reduce production, the chances are we go somewhere else, we could be pretty much guaranteed to be less productive. So we have to square that as well. We have to support, and so basically we want to maintain production. Because if it's reduced, it's pretty much guaranteed there'll be more emissions if it's reduced elsewhere. So even in the European framework, there's a commitment not to have that carbon leakage. So that's a difficult one, but we're actually tied in to prevent. We're not supposed to allow it to happen. So if we reduce production, I think it's pretty. I think most people in the room would agree emissions would be higher if we went elsewhere. So we kind of have a responsibility.
I mean, for example, again, Qatar became one of the biggest meat producers, and they are exporting, right? That's a very high price. Like in desert where they have oil, whatever, to run out of the sea, very, very high cost in terms of carbon.
But we can, I suppose, if we can show leadership, I think that's where I'm kind of passionate about. We have huge data, huge resource society, and we potential to show global leadership on this in a system of rewarding farmers while still maintaining production, but maintaining biodiversity. But also, of course, being mindful of our own commitments to our own targets. So, we'll be fine basically if we don't reduce our emissions. So being selfish about it, it's in our own interest to reduce emissions, so we don't end up with liability in terms of our global budgets, carbon budgets. So I think we have to look after our own, but I think leadership, but also, people in the room will know as well that, for market access, it's imperative that we maintain, that we develop new innovations, because other countries are competing on reducing their own emissions. So for market access, I think it's important to develop this. So even to purely on the selfish base. Sorry.
Okay, thanks. One more.
Maybe last one. And who consider that, agriculture before maybe a good one, right? And we can, because of the carbon emission, I think there will be whether we found or we don't. In some. So we go back to the ancestors before the ancestors, if we see how much. They were doing it wrong.
That's difficult baseline. I mean, baseline is an important part of what we're talking about, but we're basing on 2018, but the baseline on 1800 would be very difficult. A tough ask. Sorry, I don't know if anybody else.
Okay,